All right, today we got Domovang. Domovang, I don't know.
Real secret reason that a woman picks a man, sometimes she doesn't even know this secret. We pick a man who gives us something we cannot give ourselves. That is the feeling of being feminine. I said it. In today's day and age, women get stuff done. We take care of ourselves for the most part. Pay our own bills, carry our own groceries, make our own doctor appointments. We don't really need a man for these practical reasons anymore. It's just not necessary. Most of our careers are better when we're not in relationships. But do you know what she absolutely cannot do without you? She can't do this without you. And it's being feminine. It's being
Yeah, good luck dismantling this topic in the eyes of the average woman because there's this mix up and constant gray area conversation about what is feminine, what is masculine, and all the manipulations that come with that in order to serve whatever narrative it is. In this case, I'm obviously referring to the narrative that serves the feminine world. This is partially why I'm working on creating an objective matrix to what defines masculine and feminine for the human species. We can very clearly see that empirically, there's certain traits that lead to certain results. For example, being hyper-disciplined and attached to a purpose leads to a certain type of result, especially if you're trying to go for something. Being emotional, on the other hand, contradicts those other traits. You can't simultaneously be extremely disciplined and hyper emotional. They don't go hand in hand. Now, of course, there's a spectrum or a continuum to this. There's probably a percentage you could be disciplined, a percentage emotional, but it's never an extreme of one and the other because, like I said, those two worlds do not gel. At least not at the extreme level. What am I trying to say with all of this? I am tired of the constant subjective pandering. Whenever I try to make an objective definition on a specific type of trait that I would deem to be masculine, there is always the majority that come in and try to make it subjective and try to claim there's some sort of a gray area and how it's not real and how it depends on the context and all of these different things that all serve to bolster the narrative. The narrative of, I want to have my cake and eat it too. I can be a rich CEO and be submissive. I can start a company from zero and scale it up to the top 1% within its niche and then turn around and be submissive without any issue switching back and forth. I'm extremely fatigued of this notion because I know it's not real. You can act up to a point, but eventually the rubber meets the road and the act will fall apart. There's a very tiny percentage of people that can maintain an act for a lifetime. Chances are it's not you.
soft, held, cared for, delicate. It requires polarity, okay? It requires polarity. If you are that masculine role in her life, she can rest and be in her feminine. That makes sense? When you open the car doors for her, when you open restaurant doors for her, you pull out her chairs, it gives her a calm energy, steadfast, grounding energy. That's when she can relax.
So I agree with everything she's saying, but the problem I have is that talk is cheap. When I say talk is cheap, what I'm referring to is that they say these things and they buy into the act, but when push comes to shove, are they going to maintain this position? Now, obviously, I've experimented with this a lot, so I'm not saying that you should do this yourself because as soon as you put yourself in a position with a girl that you might be intimate with and you start testing her in this way, it might come off weird if you do it too early. A great litmus test to try on girls like this that claim they believe in this sort of an act or they're tradcons or Christians or whatever, tell them to read Corinthians 14:34 and ask them for their opinion. If their knee-jerk reaction is to immediately spew some sort of a narrative that would discredit what that says, then I think you know what you have on your hands. Submission doesn't necessarily mean powerlessness, but that message is long gone. There's quite obviously a macro reasoning as to why it has to be that way, even though once in a while we can give a micro exemption. When it comes to the micro exemption, you have to remember that it's not all about you. Good luck proving that in today's time.
Women fall in love with who they are, how they feel when they're with you. If you can do this correctly, she will pick you every time.
Quick detail that she revealed herself. Women fall in love with who they are when they're around you. Self-focused. Remember this.
Over a 6'5", wealthy, handsome guy. She won't even pick him. He'll mean nothing to her. If you can create that grounded, safe, stable energy, you will be who she picks. Name is Jomo. I will teach you how to get that girl that you want. I do a one-on-one in bio.
Yes, I believe in this. Yes, I believe it's true. However, who's going to have an easier time to make her feel a certain way? I'll leave that conclusion up to you.
Hey guys, before we continue, I just want to quickly let you know that I do have a dating course available where I go over all the essential concepts of modern dating. Make sure to check it out. I put the link in the description for you. Let's get back to the video.
On to the next one. Ask Julia.
Nobody talks about this when it comes to seduction, but let me tell you something. Men are visual. Women, they're verbal. When a man sees a pretty face, his brain goes haywire. Poor little things, they just short circuit. But when a woman hears the right words, what do we do? What do we do? She's already halfway in love, right? That's why the original seducers, like the Don Juans of the 17th century, weren't even that hot. Did you know that?
Just want to point out real quick, I'm so tired of these girls that are doing makeup to try to act nonchalant when they're recording these videos. We all know you're pretending to look nonchalant. Okay, so let's start with that.
Some of them were physically tragic, but they could talk. They used words like they were spells, like they were poetry, like basically hypnosis.
A lot of people fail to understand that magic does exist, of course not in the format that we think it does. Words, quite literally, when they're used in the right way with the right context, act and perform as spells. I mean, think about it. Words have created an environment where more than 50% of people in this country believe in something that no longer serves anybody. Do you need any more proof than this? If you don't want the political version, let's go back to the Salem witch trials. That whole situation started with a singular seed, and when that seed sprouted, guess what happened? People died. Died because of words, died because of fear. To assume that humanity as a whole, from a macro perspective, has changed at all would be naive.
They didn't need the abs when they had articulation. Women fall for language. We fall for the tone, the teasing, the charm, because when a man can paint a world with his words, suddenly we just want to live in it, right?
Is that manipulation? This is always the grand debate amongst people online because they always say, well, I don't want to manipulate and blah, blah, blah. She's basically indirectly saying that she wants to be manipulated. The problem is that she's saying it indirectly. She's not going to use that negative language because manipulation, of course, has a negative connotation. Instead, what she's going to say is paint a world for me, which includes extending the truth, creating images of things that may or may not be real or speculative in nature, focusing on the aesthetic nature, even though the foundation may not be bulletproof quite yet. Of course, I view it in the objective way it needs to be viewed. It's all under the umbrella of manipulation. The only difference, of course, is that certain manipulation leads to good results and good feelings, which then doesn't get labeled as manipulation. The only time it gets labeled as this negative manipulation is when things don't go well and it leads to chaos and people are not happy. Maybe even the result is objectively good, but if people aren't happy, it doesn't matter. It's still considered negative. In the end, it's important to understand there's always this dance on this razor's edge between what is manipulation? Is it good? Is it bad? I mean, it's really annoying to maneuver. I think we should just accept it as a society that manipulation exists, and we shouldn't just immediately say that all of it's necessarily negative. At least then we open our eyes to what's possible instead of covering ourselves, pretending it's not real, and then later claiming victim when we've been seduced by it. You know, I just, that process to me sometimes doesn't really make it makes sense why people love to cope, right? But to me personally, as a guy that loves to focus on the objective nature of things, not just on my own personal bias or subjectivity, it's sort of hard to rationalize this deep, deep desire to constantly be in a cope where things have a fresh coat of paint on it instead of looking at it for what it truly is. But hey, maybe I'm just the weird guy.
Right? But here's where a lot of people screw it up. They think that chasing and showing people how much they like them is the same thing as seducing. And that is absolutely not it. If you're always the one that's texting, liking, showing up first, congratulations. You've just killed the mystery.
Girls are very good at understanding power, okay? That's what she's trying to say here, indirectly, of course. When you are constantly texting her, feeding her validation, trying to tell her you love her, weak girls might buy into this because they're obsessed with validation of self, okay? But any girl that's, lived a certain way, maybe a half decent upbringing, a little bit more attractive, these types of tricks aren't going to work as well because she's going to recognize that she's in the power position, right? And girls inherently, yes, they're always going to try to be in the power position, but they deeply don't resonate with actually being in that position. So this is something that you just have to accept as a fact, and everybody is going to deny it. You go to any girl and ask her, it's very, very rare for them to admit that this is the truth, right? They never want to show their poker hand, of course.
You've become predictable, and people do not crave what's constantly there. They crave what's curious. When you're always available, they stop valuing that access to you. You just become background noise. So what do you do when this happens?
Rarity. Things that are rare must be valuable. Keep in mind also that 99% of guys do not have the discipline to be rare. So if a guy can pull this off, it sort of does work. Like their system does make sense. They claim obviously that it's one thing, but the truth is that rarity goes hand in hand with the discipline to control the narrative. With that control comes power, which inevitably has some level of authority. Okay, and girls are always going to be attracted to this level of authority. If you can't even tell her no, if you can't even have discipline with her, how are you going to take any form of leadership? Because she's very quickly going to run your life. And that is a story for, honestly, the vast majority of men nowadays, whether it's through their wife, through their girlfriend, through porn online, through whatever other means. There's tons of other feminine means. I'm not going to give you the entire list, but essentially, the vast majority of men have been in this trap for a long, long time.
You just step back. You create a little absence, even if you're in a relationship, just a little distance. Make them miss you, because seduction isn't about being everywhere.
Of course, you have to remember that they can't know you're doing this. The moment they catch on to the fact with 100% certainty that you're playing this game, they might hit you back with intense spite. So these days, girls go online and watch these videos too, so they're sort of aware of what a guy is doing, and they're only going to accept this from you if they want to accept that frame of you, right? So you have to be a little bit careful. You can't be super obvious about this, especially now with all the information online. And there's girls out there that'll tell girls to do the exact same thing as this girl's telling guys to do, right? So just keep that in mind. Yeah, your subtlety rating has to go up big time.
Times Square, it's about being unforgettable when you're not there.
Ultimately, it's all feelings based, and that's how they navigate it. Of course, from our end as guys, there is some form of objective map to get to that point, but in the end of the day, you do have to navigate the feelings of it, and that's where you have to learn some of the practical aspects of this game. All right, we got obviously Julia.
If a girl likes you coming from a female in the female species herself. Last time y'all men got so mad when I called y'all male species, so here I am calling myself a female species, showing you that it's really
If you care about someone saying that, I have no words for you.
not that deep. The first thing is, if you guys are constantly liking each other's stories back and forth and you guys aren't like close friends or nothing like that, she probably likes you. And trust me when I say this, I know you guys like it when us females make the first move, but man up and make the first move. Text her first. Like, don't be lame. Trust me.
Guys never make the first move. Let's stop pretending, okay? Girls sits in the corner. She either likes you or she doesn't, okay? So from a metaphysical perspective, she has made the first move. After that, all you're doing is uncovering the truth. Physically speaking, sure, you could argue that you as the man makes the first move. From a metaphysical perspective, she has already decided far before you've made that move whether it's a yes or no. And I know some guy's going to ask, so I'm going to paint the hypothetical for you for the niche situation. What if the girl has never seen you and you tap her on the shoulder and she turns around and she sees you for the first time? Before you've even asked the question, which means you haven't really made the move quite yet, she's already scanned and she's already decided yes or no before you've even said anything. And then you proceed to open conversation, then you proceed to feel the energy or whatever. And of course, if the energy is good, what does that mean? She's already accepted it, right? So she's already made the metaphysical move, of course. And from that point on, all you're doing is confirming that in the physical realm. That's it. So this idea that a guy makes the first move has never really existed, okay? Girls decide who gets access, okay? Not you as a man. So no, you don't make the first move. This has never really been the case. And if you ask any hyper attractive guy who obviously has female interest, a lot of them will tell you the exact same story. Of course, that's a small minority of men, obviously, because to get to that point takes a lot of effort, work on all ends of your life. But ask them completely randomly, and you'll see that there's a pattern to what they say every single time. They don't need to go out there and make these first moves and whatever else, okay? They put themselves in a position where they're around a volume of women, and then that volume of women filters down, and they make themselves available to this man to where now he can choose to open conversation or not, depending on what he thinks or what position he's in or whatever not. This, of course, is the objective nature of it. Now, I know a lot of girls are going to claim, well, I didn't even know that I liked him. He talked to me. Look, when a girl tells you that, you can't believe it at face value. Girls are not very in tune with their feelings. Now, I know a lot of people are going to have a problem with that, but let me just explain real quick. Girls may feel a lot of things, but their logical mind doesn't always know exactly what that feeling means. Part of a girl's hyperadaptation to a logical structure means she's spending a lot of her energy focused on logic, thinking 1 + 1 to the point that she shuts out and loses connection to what that feeling means. The feeling is always there. She's just not understanding it, or she's trying to push it away. That feeling, of course, could mean she's attracted to you. She's out of touch or out of tune with that feeling. So now, by you talking to her, she has to get to a point where she starts to connect the dots herself. Hopefully that makes some sense.
Us females do not want to go and text you first. If we're showing you these signs that we like you, text first. Make the first move. Say something. The next thing, if she's constantly making eye contact with you in a conversation, she probably likes you. Not probably, she definitely does. It's not just like regular eye contact. She's like looking deep into yours.
By texting first in these scenarios, you have to understand that you're not necessarily making the first move. Yes, they're labeling it that way in the physical realm once again. But if you're smart enough, you'll be able to perceive these signals. And from that point forward, all you're doing is just playing your role. Okay, it's that simple. You're essentially protecting her image by texting in this scenario because she doesn't want the label of being a hoe. There's a societal notion that hoes or aggressive females are the ones that text first. Even though we know that's not necessarily true, they're going to try to protect themselves from that image. Okay, so if you recognize these things, a lot of girls are going to try to play this game. Now, not all girls are going to play this game, but there's a big percentage that do. So you have to be able to recognize these signs. So when you go in, you know what's happening. All right?
Soul. And if her eyebrows are like constantly moving, like she's showing emotions into what you're saying, and she's showing that she really cares about what you're saying, she likes you. Trust.
The single word for this is attentiveness. Okay, if she's attentive to where you are, and I always talk about how when a girl's aware of where you are in a space, this is a very positive sign. This is why in the past, I've told you guys plenty of times, if you go to the coffee shop or whatever, and you see some girl that's sort of standing there and she's sort of near you, and you feel that her attention is focused constantly somewhere in your vicinity, okay? And if you pay attention closely enough, you'll start to notice she'll look over in your direction to see if you're still there. This is a massive green flag, okay? Because she's aware of you in the space. This is attentiveness. Once again, this is how girls make the first move, okay? You just have to be able to receive the signal.
Me coming from myself, I don't be doing that to just no regular guy. Like, you can tell when I'm not interested in the conversation. I'll just be like, okay, cool. The next thing is if you walk past her friend group and they either go completely silent or they start like looking at her and giggling and like looking at each other, she probably likes you. Now,
another common thing that girls do is they get really, really loud all of a sudden. They start laughing extremely loudly. This is to gain the attention of some guy that has now entered the vicinity. Okay, it's very, very common. I've experienced it dozens of times in my life and observed it and then watched as other guys walk by and you see the behavior changes. Okay, so take it from me, this is a real thing. It's hard to filter this. Okay, with any of these things, you have to treat it sort of like a stock graph. Like if you have those trading indicators, you're not going to go necessarily all in with all of your eggs or all of your money in this case based off one indicator, but you take these indicators in aggregate. Okay, you take them as a group and you see if this one goes off, this one goes off, this one goes off, your chances are pretty good. This is how you move. Okay, so just remember this. You don't want to go all in on this one thing because then you get hyperfixated on one thing, and then if it doesn't work out, now you're saying, oh, this isn't real or whatever. It's because you're not processing it in the correct way. Okay, and this takes time. It's not easy.
Make sure you know the difference between like giggling and looking at each other and genuinely like laughing their butts off. Because if you walk past and they laugh their butts off, you're probably chopped. Probably got a bad haircut or something. You might be cooked.
Of course, laughing at you is very, very different than attention seeking. But once again, this is why you have to be able to recognize these things in aggregate as a group thing. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Make sure to check my links in the description below.